A few years back, a couple named Robert and Susan Miller decided they really needed a night to themselves. Life with two young kids was great, but it was also exhausting. They hadn't been on a proper date in months. They planned a nice dinner downtown and called the one babysitter they knew they could always count on, a 19-year-old college student named Chloe. When Chloe arrived at their two-story home in the suburbs, Robert and Susan were just about ready to go. Susan was putting on her earrings, and Robert was grabbing the car keys. "Chloe, thank you so much for coming on such short notice," Susan said, giving her a warm smile. "Noah and Emma are already asleep upstairs. They had a long day at the park, so you probably won't hear a peep out of them." "No problem at all, Mrs. Miller," Chloe said, hanging her jacket on the coat rack. "Just have a good time." Robert walked over and handed her a piece of paper with their phone numbers on it. "We'll have our cells on. The remote for the TV is on the coffee table. Help yourself to anything in the fridge. We should be back around midnight." He gave her a reassuring look. "Just make yourself at home." Chloe nodded and watched them leave. The front door clicked shut. The sound of their car pulling away faded into the night. Suddenly, the house was completely quiet. For the first hour, everything was perfectly normal. Chloe did what any good babysitter would do. She quietly went upstairs and peeked into the kids' rooms. Just as Susan had said, 8-year-old Noah and 6-year-old Emma were sound asleep in their beds, breathing softly. The house was peaceful. She went back downstairs and settled onto the big comfy couch in the living room. She pulled out her phone and scrolled for a while, then tried to read a chapter of a book for one of her classes. But she couldn't focus. The silence of the big house was starting to get to her. It was the kind of quiet that makes every little creak of the floorboards and every hum from the kitchen appliances sound 10 times louder than they should. She started to feel a little restless, a little bored. She wasn't scared, just on edge. The feeling of being the only person awake in a sleeping house was always a little strange. She decided that watching some TV would help fill the silence and make the time pass faster. Chloe picked up the remote from the coffee table and turned on the TV. She flicked through the channels, but there wasn't much to watch. Robert and Susan didn't have a big cable package for the downstairs TV. They had told her before that they didn't want the kids watching a bunch of junk, so it was mostly just local news and public access channels. Nothing interesting at all. Chloe sighed, turning the TV off. The heavy silence returned instantly. Then she remembered something Susan had mentioned once before, that they had a big flat-screen TV with all the channels in their master bedroom. She felt a little awkward about going into their private room, but she was getting really bored. She decided it was better to call and ask first. As she stood up from the couch, she heard a faint noise from upstairs, a soft thump. Her heart skipped a beat. She stood perfectly still, listening. It was probably just one of the kids rolling over in bed, or maybe just the old house settling. After a minute of complete silence, she told herself to relax and walked into the kitchen to grab the cordless phone. Chloe dialed Robert's number. He picked up on the second ring. "Hello?" he asked, his voice a little muffled by the noise of a restaurant in the background. "Chloe? Is everything okay?" "Oh, hi, Mr. Miller," Chloe replied, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, everything's fine. The kids are still fast asleep. I just had a kind of silly question." "Sure, what's up?" Robert responded. "Well," Chloe hesitated, "I was going to watch some TV, but there's not much on down here. Would it be okay if I use the TV in your room? Mrs. Miller mentioned you had cable up there." Chloe could hear Robert talking to Susan in the background. Then he came back on the line. "Yeah, of course, no problem at all. Go right ahead." "Great, thank you so much," Chloe said, relieved. "Oh, and just one last weird request. You're going to think I'm crazy." She let out a nervous little laugh. "From your bedroom window, I can see this statue in the backyard. It's a statue of a gardener, I think. It's really freaking me out. Would it be okay if I just put a blanket or something over the window so I don't have to look at it?" The line went completely silent. Chloe waited. She could no longer hear the sounds of the restaurant. The silence stretched on for 5 seconds, then 10. It felt like an eternity. She was about to ask if he was still there when Robert's voice came back, and it was completely different. The warmth was gone. It was cold, sharp, and full of a terror she had never heard before. "Chloe," he said, his voice low and urgent, "listen to me very carefully. Take the children and get out of the house." Robert's voice trembled with panic. "Go to the neighbor's house and call the police right now." Chloe felt her blood turn cold. "What? Why? What's wrong?" Robert's next words froze her in place. "We don't have a gardener statue." Chloe didn't wait to hear another word. She dropped the phone. It clattered against the kitchen floor. For a terrifying second, she couldn't move, her eyes darting toward the dark staircase. That thump she'd heard earlier. It wasn't the house settling, and it wasn't one of the kids. It was from the master bedroom. It had already been inside. A report later confirmed police units arrived at the Miller house less than 3 minutes after Robert's desperate 911 call. They found the front door unlocked, and the house eerily quiet. Upstairs, they discovered a horrific scene. Both Noah and Emma, along with their babysitter, Chloe, found dead in the master bedroom. There was no sign of a forced entry, and when the police searched the backyard, they found nothing out of place. No statue was ever found, but on the soft grass, just outside the master bedroom window, officers noticed 2 deep, perfectly formed footprints pressed into the earth, right where something had been standing, watching the house. Before deciding to come inside,